My name is Rachel Bennett, 32 years old, and standing on the porch of my childhood home felt like stepping back in time. Grandma Evelyn had passed away 3 months ago, and this Christmas would be our first without her. The Victorian house with its gabled roof had always been my safe haven, but now it felt like a battleground. My brother Nathan expected me to agree to sell it, splitting what he called our inheritance. Little did he know I had something tucked in my purse that would change everything. If you're watching this from a family gathering, hit like and subscribe before the drama in your own house matches what I'm about to share. I've always been the family outlier. While everyone else settled within a 20-mile radius of our hometown in Massachusetts, I escaped to Boston after college. I built a respectable career as an architect, specializing in restoring historic properties. The irony isn't lost on me now. My older brother Nathan, 38, followed in our father Harold's footsteps, joining the family insurance business and marrying his high school sweetheart Heather. Nathan always had this air about him, like the world owed him something just for existing. Growing up, if I had a toy he wanted, he'd simply take it. If I achieved something, he'd find a way to diminish it. Classic eldest child syndrome, but with an extra dash of entitlement. Rachel's just going through a phase, my mother Eleanor would say whenever I expressed any ambition beyond our small town. She'll settle down eventually. That phase was now a 15-year career, but they still talked about my life like it was a temporary distraction. Grandma Evelyn was different. She'd been widowed young and maintained her independence fiercely. While my parents constantly compared me to Nathan, Grandma saw me for who I was. "You remind me of myself," she'd tell me during our special afternoons together in her study. "Never apologize for charting your own course." Nathan resented their bond. He'd make snide comments about me being the favorite whenever Grandma gave me extra attention. The truth was, he rarely visited her unless he wanted something. I called her every Sunday and came back monthly, helping maintain the beautiful Victorian home that had been in our family for generations. The house itself was a character in our family story. Built in 1895, it had weathered countless storms, both literal and metaphorical. I spent countless hours exploring its hidden corners, memorizing every creak in the floorboards. Nathan complained about its outdated everything, but I saw the craftsmanship that modern homes could never replicate. When Grandma fell ill, I took unpaid leave to care for her during her final weeks. Nathan visited twice, both times discussing what the house might sell for in today's market. I pretended not to hear, focusing instead on making Grandma comfortable. "Don't worry about me," she'd said, squeezing my hand with surprising strength for someone so frail. "I've made arrangements. You'll be taken care of." I assumed she meant emotionally, through memories and keepsakes. I hadn't expected anything material, especially since my financial situation wasn't exactly flourishing. Despite my professional success, student loans, and the startup costs of my fledgling historic preservation consultancy kept me living more modestly than most assumed. I'd just signed a lease on a tiny studio apartment that cost nearly half my monthly income. After the funeral, Nathan immediately started talking about putting the house on the market. "Spring is the best time to sell," he declared at the reception, as if Grandma's death was primarily a real estate opportunity. "Shouldn't we wait a bit?" I suggested. "There's so much to sort through." "That's just sentimentality talking," he dismissed. "We can hire people to clear it out." Our parents nodded along. In their minds, the decision was already made. The house would be sold, the proceeds split, and that would be that. I didn't argue further, not yet ready to reveal what Grandma's lawyer had told me privately after the will reading, information I was still processing myself. December 23rd arrived with a light dusting of snow that made the old Victorian look like something from a Christmas card. I parked my modest sedan behind Nathan's luxury SUV and sat for a moment, gathering my strength. The porch steps creaked their familiar welcome as I climbed them, luggage in tow. I barely had time to knock before the door swung open, revealing Heather's plastic smile. "Rachel." "Finally." Nathan was beginning to think you'd backed out. Her voice carried the artificial cheer of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. "Traffic from Boston," I explained, stamping snow from my boots. The house smelled different. Grandma's familiar scent of cinnamon and old books replaced by Heather's overpowering floral perfume. Christmas decorations I didn't recognize adorned the entryway, modern and minimalist rather than the cherished ornaments Grandma had collected over decades. "We've made some improvements," Heather announced, gesturing around. The place was so outdated. I bit my tongue. 3 months, and they were already erasing Grandma's presence. Nathan emerged from the kitchen, wine glass in hand. "The prodigal sister returns," he smirked, offering a perfunctory cheek kiss. "Hope you don't mind. We took the master bedroom. Makes sense since we're here more often." "Actually, I was hoping to stay in my old room," I said, already knowing the answer. "Oh, we've put Mom and Dad there," Heather interjected. "They're arriving in an hour. You're in the guest room at the end of the hall." The guest room. In the house I grew up in. I swallowed hard and carried my bags upstairs. The narrow room had always been where we put relatives we didn't particularly want to host. The mattress sagged, the dresser drawer stuck, and the window faced the neighbor's brick wall. I set down my bags and took a deep breath. A family photo on the nightstand caught my eye: Grandma, Nathan, our parents, and me at Nathan's wedding. I remembered that day clearly. Nathan had insisted on having it at the house, despite Grandma's health concerns, because it would save money on a venue. I'd spent the entire weekend running interference, making sure Grandma wasn't overwhelmed. I wandered down the hall to what had been Grandma's study. The door was ajar, revealing stacked moving boxes labeled Goodwill and Trash. My stomach clenched. I pushed the door open wider. The bookshelves that once held Grandma's cherished first edition novels were half empty. Her antique desk, where she'd written thousands of letters, was covered with paint swatches and home renovation magazines. "We're thinking of turning this into a home gym," Nathan's voice came from behind me. "Nobody reads physical books anymore anyway." I turned slowly. "Don't you think we should discuss these decisions as a family?" He raised an eyebrow. "I'm just being practical. This place needs to show well when we list it. Vintage is fine, but nobody wants a time capsule." "Some people appreciate history," I countered. "Some people can't afford sentimentality," he replied smoothly. "Speaking of which, I've been meaning to discuss your share of the proceeds. Heather and I found a great investment property, and if you're willing to take a slightly smaller percentage up front, we could." "Let's talk after Christmas," I interrupted. "I'd like to settle in first." His expression hardened briefly before he shrugged. "Sure. Plenty of time to figure out the details." Dinner that evening was tense. Our parents arrived, immediately complimenting Nathan on the modern touches he'd added to the house. Dad launched into a discussion about property values in the area, while Mom fretted about whether the kitchen appliances would hurt or help the sale. "I've already spoken with a few realtors," Nathan announced. "They think we could list by February if we hustle." "Isn't that rushing things?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Rushing?" Nathan laughed. "It's been 3 months, Rachel. How long do you expect us to keep this place in limbo? It's a financial drain." "The property taxes are paid through June," I pointed out. "And the utilities barely cost anything since Grandma was so energy conscious." "It's not just about money," Mom interjected, clearly trying to play peacemaker. "It's about moving forward. Your grandmother wouldn't want us dwelling in the past." I wanted to argue that Grandma valued history and preservation above almost everything, but instead, I excused myself early, claiming fatigue from the drive. Later that night, I slipped into Grandma's study and quietly closed the door. In the dim light from the desk lamp, I reopened the bottom drawer where she'd always kept important documents. Nathan had cleared most of it out, but he'd missed the false bottom, a secret Grandma had shared only with me. From the hidden compartment, I retrieved the property deed and unfolded it carefully. Seeing it again sent a wave of emotion through me. 2 weeks after Grandma's funeral, her lawyer Sam had called me privately. "Your grandmother made some changes to her will in the final months," he'd explained. "She left the house solely to you, Rachel. Not to be divided, not to be contested. She was very explicit about her wishes." I'd been stunned into silence. "She also left a letter explaining her decision," Sam had continued. "Would you like me to read it to you?" No, I'd said quickly. I'll come pick it up. But I never had. Something held me back, perhaps the knowledge of the family explosion that would follow. I'd told Sam to hold the letter until I was ready, but I'd accepted the property deed, still uncertain about when or how to reveal the truth. Now, holding the document in Grandma's study, I traced her name on the paper and whispered, "What were you thinking, Grandma? They're going to hate me." I carefully returned the deed to my purse. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. I'd find the right moment to tell them, somehow. Christmas Eve morning dawned bright and cold. The sun reflected off the snow, filling the house with natural light that emphasized how much had already changed. Family photos that had hung on the walls for decades were gone, replaced by generic artwork Heather must have brought. The antique grandfather clock in the hallway, a wedding gift to my great-grandparents, had disappeared entirely. "Where's the clock?" I asked over breakfast. "That old thing," Mom replied. "Nathan had it moved to storage. It was taking up too much space. And it didn't keep proper time," Nathan added without looking up from his phone. "We can sell it with the house or auction it off separately. Apparently, it might be worth something to collectors." My jaw clenched. That clock had chimed through 4 generations of our family's lives. "I thought we could all go cut a tree this afternoon," Dad suggested, clearly trying to foster some holiday spirit. "Like we used to when you kids were small." "Already taken care of," Nathan announced. "Heather picked up an artificial one last week. It's in the living room." "Pre-decorated," Heather added proudly. "No mes, no maintenance." No tradition, no memories, I thought. After breakfast, I escaped for a walk around the neighborhood, needing space to clear my head. The familiar streets were decorated for Christmas, each home with its own character. Unlike our house, which was being systematically stripped of its identity. When I returned, Nathan was giving someone a tour of the property. A man in a contractor's jacket was measuring the dining room walls and making notes. "Just getting some preliminary quotes," Nathan explained when he saw my expression. "For upgrades that would maximize resale value. Don't you think we should decide as a family what renovations to make?" I asked after the contractor left. Nathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm just being proactive, Rachel. We all want the best price, right? Unless you're planning to buy everyone out with your architect's salary." The condescension in his tone made my blood boil, but before I could respond, I noticed a stack of Grandma's photo albums on the donate pile. "You're getting rid of these?" I pulled them from the box. "Nobody looks at physical photos anymore," Heather said. "I offer to scan the good ones before we toss them." "Toss them?" Like they were meaningless. "I'll take them," I said firmly. "Sentimentality will only make this harder," Nathan commented. "You can't keep everything, Rachel." "Watch me," I muttered, carrying the albums upstairs. While everyone was busy with Christmas preparations, I slipped out to meet Sam, Grandma's lawyer, at a coffee shop downtown. The middle-aged man with kind eyes had always treated me with respect, unlike many who assumed I was just playing at having a career. "How's the house situation?" he asked after we exchanged pleasantries. "Complicated," I admitted. "Nathan's already acting like he owns the place. He's making renovation plans, clearing out Grandma's things." Sam frowned. "Have you told them about the deed?" "Not yet. I'm waiting for the right moment." "Rachel," Sam leaned forward, "there may not be a right moment for news they don't want to hear. Your grandmother was explicit about her wishes. This property is legally yours, solely yours." "I know, but—" "No buts." Evelyn anticipated resistance. That's why she updated her will months before she passed, ensuring it was airtight. She knew exactly what she was doing. I stared into my coffee. "Did she tell you why?" "Why just me?" Sam hesitated. "That's in her letter to you, which, may I remind you, you still haven't picked up." "I'm not ready yet." "Well, get ready soon. The longer you wait to assert your ownership, the messier this becomes." I nodded, knowing he was right. "One more thing," Sam added as we parted. "Your grandmother paid the property taxes for the next 3 years. She wanted to give you time to decide what to do, without financial pressure." This new information made my throat tight. Grandma had thought of everything. When I returned to the house, I found Mom in the kitchen preparing Christmas Eve dinner. Need help? I offered. She seemed surprised but handed me potatoes to peel. We worked in companionable silence for a while. This house holds so many memories, I finally said. Mom's hands paused briefly. Yes. But memories travel with you, Rachel. We don't need the physical place to keep them. Some places are special, though. Irreplaceable. She gave me a sideways glance. Is this about your career? I know you love old buildings, but sometimes progress means letting go. Is it progress if it erases history? Mom sighed. Your brother has financial considerations that you don't understand. He and Heather have been struggling. This inheritance would help them tremendously. My suspicions confirmed. So, that's why he's in such a rush to sell? Money problems. Don't tell him I told you, she said quickly. Some investments didn't pan out, but he'll bounce back. He always does. Usually with someone else's resources, I thought but didn't say. Christmas Eve dinner was traditionally a casual affair in our family, followed by the more formal Christmas Day meal. But Heather had invited 2 couples from their country club, potential buyers for the house, I realized as introductions were made. Charles and Diana are looking for a vacation property, Heather explained, with a meaningful look at the distinguished couple. And Michael and Susan just love vintage homes. The entire dinner felt like a real estate showing. Nathan highlighted the potential of various rooms, pointing out where walls could be removed for an open-concept feel. No one seemed to notice or care about the craftsmanship of the original woodwork or the history embedded in every corner. I excused myself early, unable to bear watching my childhood home being mentally dismantled by strangers. In my purse, the property deed felt like it was burning a hole. You're being childish. Nathan cornered me in the hallway as I headed upstairs. These are serious buyers. Do you know what this place could go for with the right bidding war? Is that all this house means to you? A payday? His expression hardened. Not all of us have the luxury of sentimentality, Rachel. Some of us have real-world obligations. Like bad investments you need to cover? I said quietly. His face flushed. Who told you that? Mom. He leaned closer. Listen carefully. I've already spent months managing Grandma's affairs while you were playing house in Boston. I've lined up buyers, contractors, and realtors. This is happening, with or without your approval. So get on board, or get out of the way. For the first time, I saw Nathan clearly. He wasn't just entitled, he was desperate. I retreated to Grandma's study, now half empty, but still somehow holding her essence. In the window seat where she used to read to me, I found an envelope tucked between the cushions. My name was written in her elegant script. With trembling fingers, I opened it. My dearest Rachel, asterisk. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've discovered my favorite hiding spot. You always did know this house, as well as I do. Better than anyone else in the family, asterisk. I've made a decision that may cause strife, but I've never been one to avoid difficult choices. This house is yours now. Not to be divided or sold off to the highest bidder, but to be loved as it deserves, asterisk. Nathan will be angry. Your parents will be confused. They see this place as an asset, but you see it as I always have, as a home, a keeper of stories, a place of belonging, asterisk. Stand firm, my girl. You've spent your life accommodating others at your own expense. It's time to claim what's yours, asterisk. All my love, asterisk. Grandma Evelyn, asterisk. Tears streamed down my face as I folded the letter and tucked it away. Tomorrow was Christmas Day, and things were about to change. Christmas morning arrived with picture-perfect snow falling gently outside. In years past, this would have been a magical moment. Watching the flakes through Grandma's leaded glass windows, the scent of her cinnamon rolls baking, carols playing on her antique record player. Instead, I woke to the sound of Nathan giving another house tour. This time to a contractor discussing kitchen renovations. We'd got the whole thing, the man was saying as I came downstairs. These old cabinets aren't worth saving. Grandma had hand-selected those oak cabinets, working with a local craftsman who matched the house's original woodwork. I busied myself making coffee, trying to tune out the conversation about demolition and modernization. The property deed was safely tucked in my sweater pocket, where I'd been carrying it since finding Grandma's letter. Every time Nathan mentioned another improvement, I touched it like a talisman. Gift exchange was scheduled for 10 a.m. I'd spent weeks creating thoughtful presents, a hand-bound photo album of family memories for my parents, a watercolor painting of the house for Nathan and Heather, more aspirational than realistic, I now realized. We gathered in the living room around the artificial tree with its coordinated silver and blue ornaments. None of Grandma's handmade decorations were anywhere to be seen. Nathan went first, naturally. He presented our parents with an envelope. First-class tickets to Hawaii, he announced as they opened it. For after we close on the house. You deserve a proper vacation. My mother gasped in delight. Nathan, this is too much. Not at all, he said magnanimously. Consider it an advance on your portion of the inheritance. My gift suddenly seemed inadequate in comparison. When they opened the photo album, my mother made appropriate noises of appreciation, but I could tell they were still thinking about Hawaii. This is creative, Heather said when she unwrapped the watercolor, her tone making it clear this wasn't a compliment. I thought you might want a memento of the house, I explained, after it's sold. Thoughtful, Nathan said dismissively, setting it aside. Our gift to you is a bit more practical. He handed me a glossy brochure for luxury apartments in Boston. We thought you might need help finding a new place, Heather explained with artificial sweetness. Especially since you'll be coming into some money soon. The presumption was breathtaking. I accepted the brochure with a tight smile, saying nothing. After gifts, I escaped to the kitchen, volunteering to start Christmas dinner preparations. Cooking had always been therapeutic for me, and I needed space to think. As I chopped vegetables, I overheard Nathan on the phone in the adjacent dining room. Yes, we can definitely close by March, he was saying. My sister is completely on board. Just needs a little convincing about the timeline. Don't worry about that, I know how to handle her. My hand tightened around the knife. Handle me? Like I was a problem to be managed? Mom joined me in the kitchen, tying on an apron. Need help, dear? Sure, I said, passing her potatoes to peel. Mom, did Grandma ever talk to you about her plans for the house? She concentrated on the potato. Not specifically, though she did mention wanting it to stay in the family. And that doesn't conflict with selling it to strangers? Mom sighed. Rachel, I know you're attached to this place. But maintaining a house like this is expensive. It's not practical. What if someone wanted to keep it? Could maintain it? On a single income? In this economy? She shook her head. Your brother has it all figured out. The proceeds from this sale will benefit everyone. Especially Nathan. I couldn't help adding. Mom gave me a sharp look. He has a family to consider. And I don't count because I'm single? That's not what I meant. But her tone lacked conviction. Later, as I set the dining room table with Grandma's fine china, which Nathan had also designated for sale, I overheard my father and brother in the study. The market's perfect right now, Nathan was saying. But we need to move quickly. Rachel's being difficult about the timeline. She's always been sentimental, Dad replied. Gets that from her grandmother. Well, she needs to be reasonable. We can't afford delays. I thought. Since when had this become a financial emergency for all of them? Just be patient with her, Dad advised. She'll come around once she understands the financial realities. And if she doesn't? Nathan pressed. Dad sighed. Then we vote as a family. 3 against 1. My hand trembled as I placed the last dinner plate. They had already decided. My opinion was merely an inconvenient obstacle to be overcome. By late afternoon, the house filled with the smells of Christmas dinner. I'd insisted on making Grandma's traditional recipes, prime rib, Yorkshire pudding, her famous cranberry sauce. It might be my last chance to honor these traditions in the home where they belonged. As I basted the roast, Nathan appeared in the doorway. The Andersons are stopping by tomorrow. They're very interested in the property. On December 26th? Isn't that a bit eager? Serious buyers don't wait, he said smugly. They've already been pre-approved for financing. I wiped my hands on a dish towel. And if I'm not ready to sell? His expression hardened. Don't be difficult, Rachel. You're outnumbered. Is that how family decisions work? By vote. When necessary. He examined his manicured nails. Look, I've been patient. I've given you time to process your sentimentality. But the reality is, this house is an asset that needs to be liquidated. And I've already put deposits down based on my portion. Deposits on what? Investment opportunities. Time-sensitive ones. His tone made it clear I wouldn't understand such sophisticated financial matters. So you've spent money you don't have yet, I translated. His eyes narrowed. Money that is rightfully mine. Our inheritance was never in question until you started being difficult. I turned back to the oven, not trusting myself to respond. Dinner at 6, he confirmed, checking his watch. As always, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Nathan left, and I leaned against the counter, heart pounding. The property deed in my pocket felt heavier than ever. Tonight, I decided. I would tell him tonight. As I finished dinner preparations, I mentally rehearsed what I would say. How I would explain Grandma's decision without sounding smug or vindictive. Was there any way to preserve family relationships while asserting my legal rights? Mom fluttered in and out of the kitchen, arranging flowers and lighting candles for the table. Dad uncorked wine, making small talk about the snow accumulation. Nathan and Heather were conspicuously absent, probably finalizing their strategy for tomorrow's showing. At 5:55, I placed the roast on a carving board and took a deep breath. Whatever happened next would change our family forever. I touched the deed in my pocket one last time, drawing strength from Grandma's words. Asterisk, stand firm, my girl. It's time to claim what's yours, asterisk. The dining room looked like something from a magazine. Grandma's crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, and her fine china gleamed against the deep red tablecloth. I'd arranged holly and pine branches down the center, interspersed with candles. One last tribute to how she would have done it. This looks lovely, Rachel, Mom said, actually sounding sincere as she took her seat. Dad carved the roast with surgical precision, just as he did every Christmas. Your grandmother would be proud, he commented, passing plates around. You've captured her touch perfectly. Nathan and Heather exchanged glances. Although we might want to consider updating the dining room before showing the house, Heather suggested. These dark wood tones are so last decade. My jaw tightened, but I said nothing as we settled into our places. A toast, Nathan declared, raising his wine glass. To new beginnings and family prosperity in the coming year. Everyone raised their glasses. I sipped mine slowly, observing how Nathan commanded the head of the table, Grandma's place, as if it were already his. Dinner conversation flowed superficially. Weather, neighborhood gossip, distant relatives' holiday plans. Nathan kept steering things back to the house and its potential. The Andersons have excellent taste, he announced over the main course. They're thinking of converting the attic into a home theater. The roof pitch wouldn't accommodate that, I pointed out automatically. The structural modifications would compromise the architectural integrity. Nathan rolled his eyes. Always the preservationist. Buyers don't care about architectural integrity, they want modern amenities. Some buyers specifically look for historical authenticity, I countered. Well, the Andersons aren't those buyers, and they're ready to make an offer. Nathan cut into his meat forcefully. Which reminds me, we need to formalize our timeline. Here it comes, I thought. I've spoken with a realtor about listing in February, Nathan continued. That gives us January to finish clearing out the remaining items. He gestured vaguely at the room, as if everything in it was already categorized as debris. That seems rushed, I said carefully. It's already been 3 months, Nathan countered. And frankly, Rachel, your reluctance is becoming an issue. We all have financial considerations. Is that what Grandma is to you now? A financial consideration? Don't be dramatic. We all loved Grandma, but she's gone and life moves forward. Dad cleared his throat. Perhaps we could postpone this discussion until after dessert? No, Harold, let's settle this, Nathan insisted. Rachel needs to understand that her sentimentality has real consequences for the rest of us. Such as? I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. Such as holding up capital that we've already committed elsewhere. Such as delaying our ability to move forward with our lives. Nathan set down his fork with a decisive click. So let me be clear. It's time for you to move out, so we can prepare this place for market. The room fell silent. Even Heather looked uncomfortable. I've been more than patient, Nathan continued, warming to his subject. But I've got contractors ready to start renovations on January 2nd. You have 1 week to pack your things and find alternative accommodations. My mother stared at her plate. My father took a long drink of wine. 1 week, I repeated. You're evicting me from my childhood home? At Christmas dinner? Nathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm simply establishing a reasonable timeline that works for the majority. Mom and Dad are on board. I looked at her parents. Is that true? Mom fidgeted with her napkin. Dad examined his wine glass. There's silence is agreement, Nathan said smoothly. 3 against 1, as I mentioned earlier. And if I refuse? Don't be difficult, Rachel. You're outvoted. His tone hardened. You have 1 week to leave, or we'll proceed without your cooperation. The smirk on his face was what finally broke my resolve to handle this diplomatically. All the years of him taking what he wanted, of my parents enabling his entitlement, of me stepping aside to keep the peace, it crystallized in that moment. I see, I said quietly, reaching into my pocket. Actually, I think you should all know something. I withdrew the property deed and placed it on the table beside my plate. What's that? Dad asked, leaning forward. The property deed to this house, I replied calmly. Updated 3 months before Grandma died. Nathan's expression shifted from confusion to wariness. What are you talking about? Grandma left the house to me, Nathan. Solely to me. Not to be divided. Not to be sold unless I choose to sell it. I kept my voice level. It's legally mine. That's impossible, he sputtered. The will. The will you never actually read, I interrupted. Because you were too busy planning renovations and lining up buyers. I slid the document toward the center of the table. Feel free to examine it. Grandma's lawyer has all the paperwork if you'd like to verify. The house is mine. Free and clear. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad reached for the deed with a bewildered expression. Nathan's face had turned an alarming shade of red. This is a trick. Or a forgery. It's neither, I said firmly. Grandma made her decision, and she had every legal right to do so. But why would she? Mom began. Because Rachel was always her favorite, Nathan spat. She manipulated an old woman in her final months. The accusation stung, but I held my ground. Grandma was sharp until the very end. She knew exactly what she was doing. And what is it you think you're doing? Nathan demanded. Holding this over our heads for a bigger payout? I'm not selling the house, Nathan. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. That's insane, he sputtered. You can't afford to maintain a property like this. Actually, I can. Grandma paid the property taxes for the next 3 years. And my preservation consulting business can operate from here, saving me office rental costs. Nathan pushed back from the table violently. I won't accept this. We'll contest the will. On what grounds? I asked. That Grandma had the audacity to leave her property to someone who actually appreciates it. This affects all of us, he shouted. You're being selfish. Selfish. I laughed incredulously. You've spent the last 3 months parceling out her belongings, planning renovations, and lining up buyers, all without consulting me. You assign me to the guest room in my own childhood home. You've been selling off family heirlooms behind my back. And I'm the selfish one? Nathan turned to our parents. Are you going to let her get away with this? Dad was still examining the deed, his expression unreadable. Mom looked torn between her children. It appears to be legitimate, Dad finally said, his insurance agent expertise kicking in.
Evelyne's signature, properly notarized.
This is ridiculous, Nathan snarled. She can't just disinherit us. She didn't, I pointed out. She left her investments, savings, and other assets to be divided equally. Just not the house. The house is the most valuable asset. To you, maybe. To me, it's home. I straightened in my chair. And since it is legally my home, I think it's time for you all to leave. Nathan's jaw dropped. What? You heard me. You have 24 hours to pack your things and vacate my property. It's Christmas, Heather protested. Yes, and you've spent it planning to evict me in a week. I'm giving you more courtesy than you planned to give me. Rachel, surely we can discuss this reasonably, Mom pleaded. I've tried reasonable for months, I replied. I've watched you all dismantle Grandma's home piece by piece, without consulting me. I'm done being reasonable. Nathan slammed his fist on the table, making the china jump. You won't get away with this. We'll fight you in court. You're welcome to try, I said calmly. But Grandma made sure everything was ironclad. Her lawyer will confirm that. This is a betrayal, Nathan hissed. To all of us.
No, Nathan.
The betrayal was you assuming you could bulldoze over everyone else's feelings and connections to this place. I stood up slowly. 24 hours. I suggest you start packing. I walked out of the dining room with my head high, Grandma's voice echoing in my mind. Stand firm, my girl. Behind me, chaos erupted as Nathan continued shouting, and my parents tried to calm him down. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't rushing back to smooth things over. I wasn't compromising to keep the peace. I climbed the stairs to Grandma's study, my study now, and closed the door behind me, shutting out the noise. The house fell eerily quiet around midnight. After hours of shouting, slamming doors, and tense conversations too muffled for me to make out clearly, everyone had retreated to their rooms. I sat in Grandma's window seat, watching snow continue to fall, wondering if I'd just destroyed my family in order to save her house. A soft knock at the study door startled me. Rachel. It was my mother's voice. May I come in? I hesitated before answering. Yes. She entered tentatively, looking smaller somehow. In the dim light of the desk lamp, I could see she'd been crying. I didn't know, she said simply, perching on the edge of a chair. About the house, about Evelyn's decision. Would it have made a difference? I asked. She considered this. I don't know. Probably not in Nathan's case. An honest answer, at least. Why didn't you tell us sooner? She asked. I was trying to find the right time. And honestly, I was afraid of exactly what happened tonight. Mom nodded slowly. Your brother he's always been determined. Once he sets his mind on something, he steamrolls everyone until he gets it. I finished. He's under financial pressure, she offered weakly. That's not my responsibility, Mom. It never was. We sat in silence for a moment. Are you really going to make us leave tomorrow? On December 26th. I sighed. I don't want to be cruel, but Nathan made it clear he intended to start renovations without my consent. I can't trust that he won't damage something irreplaceable if I give him more time. Your father and I could stay, help mediate. Mom, I interrupted gently. You and Dad have always taken Nathan's side. In every conflict we've ever had.
Her face fell.
That's not true. Isn't it? Think about it. When has Dad ever stood up to Nathan? When have you? She had no answer. I need space, I continued, to process all this, to figure out what comes next. I can't do that with everyone here, especially not with Nathan trying to undermine me at every turn. He's talking about legal action, she admitted. I expected as much. This could tear the family apart, Rachel. I looked her directly in the eyes. The family was already broken, Mom. This just exposed the cracks. She left shortly after, looking defeated. I stayed in the window seat, watching snowflakes swirl in the glow of the street lamps, until I finally dozed off. A thunderous pounding on the study door jolted me awake. Open up, Rachel. Nathan's voice, thick with rage. Daylight streamed through the windows. I must have slept through dawn. What do you want? I called, not moving from my position. We need to talk.
Now.
I glanced at the clock. 7:23 a.m. Fine, I sighed, standing to unlock the door. Nathan burst in, still wearing yesterday's clothes, his eyes bloodshot. You need to reconsider this insanity. Good morning to you too, I said dryly. Cut the attitude. You've dropped a nuclear bomb on this family and you know it. Dramatic as always. His face contorted. You think this is funny? I've got financial commitments based on my expected inheritance. Plans made. Down payments that can't be refunded. That sounds like a you problem, I replied, channeling Grandma's forthrightness. Maybe don't spend money you don't have yet. You little. He caught himself, visibly struggling for control. You've always been jealous of me. This is your revenge, isn't it? I laughed incredulously. Jealous? Of what, exactly? Your need to tear down everything beautiful and replace it with soulless modernism? Your habit of treating people as obstacles to your desires. Of my success, he spat. My family, my life. Nathan, I've spent my career preserving historical treasures while you've spent yours selling insurance policies and making bad investments. If either of us should be jealous, it's not me. He stepped closer, using his height to intimidate me as he'd done since childhood. I'm not leaving. Yes, you are, I said firmly, refusing to back up. This is my house now. I'll contest the will. Tie it up in court for years. On what grounds? That Grandma liked me better? I shook my head. She was of sound mind. The will is legally binding. Sam already warned me you might try this, and he's prepared. Nathan's confidence faltered for a second before he rallied. You can't maintain this place on your own. You'll be begging us to help within months. I'd rather let it crumble than watch you gut it for profit. A knock at the open door interrupted our standoff. Dad stood there, looking uncomfortable. Your mother and I are packed, he said quietly. We'll be heading out within the hour. Nathan whirled on him. You're just giving up? Letting her win? Dad's shoulders slumped. It's not about winning, son. Evelyn made her wishes clear, legally and properly. We need to respect that. This is bullshit, Nathan snarled. Nathan. Dad's voice hardened uncharacteristically. Enough. Your mother's upset and your behavior isn't helping. For once, Nathan seemed taken aback by our father's firmness. We can discuss next steps after everyone's had time to cool down, Dad continued. But for now, we're leaving as Rachel requested. He turned to me, his expression a mix of resignation and something else. Was it respect? Your grandmother would be proud of you standing your ground, he said quietly. She never did approve of how we let Nathan run roughshod over family decisions. With that surprising admission, he left to finish packing. Nathan and I stood in strained silence for a moment. This isn't over, he finally said, his voice low and dangerous. Not by a long shot. Actually, it is, I replied calmly. You just don't know it yet. He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the bookshelves. The next few hours passed in a blur of tense activity. My parents loaded their car with minimal conversation, both looking shell-shocked. Nathan and Heather made as much noise as possible, making sure I heard every complaint, every accusation they hurled about my selfishness and betrayal. I stayed in Grandma's study, emerging only when I heard car doors closing. From the window, I watched my parents' sedan pull away first, followed by Nathan's SUV, which accelerated aggressively down the snowy street. And just like that, I was alone in the house. My house. The silence was both deafening and liberating. I wandered from room to room, seeing the space with new eyes. Nathan and Heather had left behind the modern decorations they'd brought, as if to spite me. I gathered them into boxes, already planning to donate them. In the kitchen, Mom had left a brief note. Asterisk, call us when you're ready to talk. We love you. Asterisk, no mention of whether they supported my decision or sided with Nathan. As the day faded into evening, I found myself drawn back to Grandma's study. The false bottom in her desk drawer still held one last surprise, a sealed envelope I hadn't noticed before, with "Read when you're alone in the house" written on it. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. My dearest Rachel, asterisk. If you're reading this, You found your courage. Good girl. I always knew you had it in you. Asterisk. This house has been in our family for generations, but never has it faced such threat from within. Your brother would have torn out its heart to line his pockets. Your parents would have let him, as they've always done. Asterisk. You once asked me why I was so passionate about preservation. Do you remember what I told you? Because stories live in the walls. This house holds our family stories, the good and the bad, the triumphs and the heartbreaks. Asterisk. I know standing up to Nathan and your parents was difficult. Family conflict always is. But sometimes family isn't defined by blood, but by who honors the same values. Asterisk. In the attic, behind the false wall in the north corner, you know the one? I've left you something else. A legacy beyond the house itself. You'll know what to do with it when you see it. Asterisk. I love you, my brave girl. Make this house yours now. Fill it with new stories worthy of its walls. Asterisk. Forever in your corner. Asterisk. Grandma Evelyn. Asterisk. Tears streamed down my face as I folded the letter. Of course I knew the false wall she mentioned. It had been our secret hiding place for treasures when I was a child. I climbed to the attic with a flashlight, navigating the familiar path through stored furniture and boxed memories. The false wall panel slid aside easily, revealing a metal lockbox I'd never seen before. Inside was a stack of financial documents, a ring of keys, and another note. Asterisk for the preservation of history, yours and others. Use it wisely. Asterisk. The documents detailed investments, accounts, and holdings I never knew Grandma possessed, carefully managed over decades, grown quietly and substantially. Along with the house, she'd left me the financial means to restore and maintain it properly and seed money to expand my preservation consultancy. I sank to the attic floor, overwhelmed by her foresight and generosity. And for the first time since the chaotic Christmas dinner, I wept freely for the grandmother who had understood me so completely, for the family relationships now damaged perhaps beyond repair, and for the weight of responsibility I now carried. But mostly, I cried with relief. Relief that I wouldn't have to choose between my principles and financial survival. Relief that Grandma had thought of everything. Relief that, at long last, I had stood my ground. As evening settled over the snow-covered neighborhood, I made a pot of tea in Grandma's favorite china teapot and carried it to the window seat in her study. The house creaked and settled around me, its familiar sounds no longer seeming like complaints but rather like conversation, the walls telling their stories, welcoming me home. January brought biting cold and crystal-clear skies. 1 month had passed since the Christmas dinner confrontation, and I was slowly transforming the house into a space that honored Grandma's legacy while reflecting my own vision. The first week alone had been the hardest. I'd wander the empty rooms, alternating between exhilaration at my newfound autonomy and crushing guilt over the family rift. Nathan hadn't spoken to me since leaving, though his lawyer had sent a threatening letter that Sam had calmly dismantled with legal precision. He has no case, Sam assured me over coffee. Just bluster and wounded pride. Give him time to accept reality. My parents had called tentatively on New Year's Day, our conversations stilted but civil. They were staying with my aunt in Connecticut, giving Nathan and Heather space to process. I translated this to mean my brother was still raging and they were avoiding the fallout. We didn't know about Evelyn's plans, Dad repeated, as if this absolved them. She never discussed it with us. Because she knew you'd try to talk her out of it, I pointed out. Or worse, warned Nathan so he could pressure her to change her mind. The uncomfortable silence confirmed my suspicion. We should have stood up to him more, Mom finally admitted. Over the years. It's just easier sometimes to let him have his way. I finished. I know. By mid-January, I'd cleared out the modern decor Nathan and Heather had introduced, restoring Grandma's carefully curated aesthetic. I rehung family photos, rescued treasured books from donation boxes, and returned the grandfather clock to its rightful place in the foyer. But I wasn't just recreating the past. Using my architectural training, I began thoughtful renovations that preserved the home's character while updating its functionality. The kitchen kept its original cabinets, but gained energy-efficient appliances. The outdated electrical system was carefully modernized without damaging the historic plaster walls. I converted the third floor into my architecture and preservation consultancy office, specializing in helping owners of historic properties maintain their home's integrity while making them livable for modern life. Grandma's financial gift gave me the freedom to be selective about clients, focusing on projects I truly believed in. The sun-filled room that had been Grandma's study became a memorial of sorts. I displayed her favorite books, photographs, and the collection of architectural drawings we'd pored over together when I was young. The window seat where she taught me to appreciate the stories buildings could tell remained untouched, a place for reflection when decisions felt overwhelming. February brought my first dinner guests, Aunt Meredith, Dad's sister, and her husband Robert, who had always been more aligned with Grandma's values than my parents were. "I'm not surprised Evelyn left you the house," Aunt Meredith confessed over dessert. "She always said you were the only one who truly saw its soul." "Nathan's still furious," Robert added, "but your parents are coming around. They're proud of what you're doing here, even if they can't say it directly yet." I took that with a grain of salt, but appreciated the sentiment. As winter softened into early spring, I established new routines and traditions. Sunday afternoons became open house for the neighborhood, where longtime residents shared stories about the home's history that even Grandma hadn't known. I documented everything, creating an oral history archive that would preserve these memories for future generations. In March, I received an unexpected email from Heather. "Rachel, asterisk. Nathan doesn't know I'm contacting you. Things have been difficult since Christmas. His investment problems were worse than anyone knew, and losing the expected house proceeds has forced some hard conversations, asterisk. I found the watercolor you painted of the house. It's beautiful. Nathan threw it in the trash, but I rescued it. Looking at it reminded me of how special that place is, and why your grandmother wanted to preserve it, asterisk. He's still too angry to admit it, but I think you made the right decision, asterisk. Take care, asterisk. Heather, asterisk. I read the message several times, surprised by this small olive branch from an unexpected source. By April, the garden was showing signs of life. I carefully tended the perennials Grandma had planted, adding new native species that would thrive with minimal intervention. The property was coming alive again, shaking off the neglect of recent months. One sunny Saturday, as I pruned the rose bushes, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. My parents stepped out, looking uncertain. "We were in the area," Mom explained, though I knew their home was 2 hours away. "Thought we might stop by. Would you like some tea?" I offered, setting aside my gardening tools. They followed me inside, their eyes widening as they took in the changes. "You've been busy," Dad observed, running his hand along the restored banister. "It's a labor of love," I replied. "It looks right," Mom said softly, "like the house is breathing again." I showed them around, explaining my vision for each space. They listened attentively, occasionally offering a memory or suggestion. The tension gradually eased as we moved through the rooms that held our shared history. "Nathan's still not ready to visit," Mom said as we settled in the kitchen with tea. "But he stopped talking about legal action." "Progress," I acknowledged. "We should have supported you more," Dad said suddenly. "At Christmas and before, your grandmother saw something in you that we missed or ignored." Because it was easier to go along with Nathan's force of personality. "It's not too late," I said, surprising myself with the forgiveness in my voice, "to build something new." As spring blossomed into summer, the house continued its transformation. I hosted a small gathering for my birthday in June, inviting friends from Boston, neighbors, and yes, my parents. Nathan declined, but sent a stiffly formal card, the first communication directly from him in 6 months. In Grandma's study, my study now, I kept a journal of the restoration process. Each entry began with "Dear Grandma," as if continuing our conversations across the divide of time and space. "Dear Grandma, asterisk. The house feels balanced now, honoring its past while embracing its future, just as you taught me to do with my own life. Asterisk. I understand now why you made the choice you did. It wasn't just about preserving the house. It was about helping me find my voice, stand my ground, claim my space in the world. Asterisk. The family wounds are healing slowly. Mom and Dad visit monthly now. Nathan remains distant, but the anger seems to be fading. Time will tell where those relationships land. Asterisk. What matters most is that I've found peace here, in these walls that hold our stories, in this space that witnessed generations of joy and sorrow, triumph and failure. Asterisk. Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling of belonging, of continuity, of being part of something larger than yourself. You knew that all along. Asterisk. Thank you for this gift, not just the house itself, but the courage to claim what matters to me. Asterisk. All my love. Asterisk. Rachel. Asterisk. As I closed the journal, sunlight streamed through the leaded glass windows, casting prismatic patterns across the floor. The house creaked and settled, a familiar conversation I'd grown to love. Outside, summer bloomed in vibrant color. Inside, history and future coexisted in harmonious balance. And I, finally, was exactly where I belonged. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family pressure? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love most. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to see more stories about finding your voice and claiming your space in the world. Thank you for spending this time with me, and remember, sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most challenging packages.